Shalom Daniel, and welcome to the Emunah Project. We here at the Emunah Project are continuing in our series of videos with respect to inspiration, information, guidance, and at the time of this recording, we are coming up in a couple of weeks to Hanukkah. And Shabbos Hanukkah, the Sabbath during the Hanukkah festival, has a special Haftarah reading from the book of Zechariah. And in this Torah reading, at the beginning of the 3rd chapter of Zechariah, we find a very interesting wording. It talks about Yeshua Nakoyin Gadol, the Joshua, the high priest. And it says, standing at his right side is Satan to accuse him. I find this wording a little interesting because not only in Torah literature, but also in popular culture, it's the left side that is considered the bad side and the right side that is considered the good side. So it strikes me as odd that Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah, is putting in this imagery of Joshua, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is putting Satan on his right side. It struck me as a little odd. I wasn't the first person to notice this. The Chofetz Chaim also noticed this, and he said a very interesting thing. Usually, the HaRa, the evil inclination, comes at you from the left side, tempts you to do something bad. But every once in a while, the HaRa comes across a person who's a bit of a challenge. And with that person, who perhaps is a little more spiritually acute, doesn't come after him in an obvious way. He doesn't say, oh, do this bad thing. He'll come after him from the right side. And he will try to persuade the person to do something which at first looks like a mitzvah, looks like a good deed, looks like you're fulfilling a commandment. But in actual facts, that's his foot in the door. That's his way in. An example would be, Yetzer says, oh, get up early. Get up, go to shul early. You know, you'll be there, you'll be happy, you'll be talking with people, you'll be part of the community, part of the minyan, and be great. And you do. You get up, you're in the synagogue a little early, you see your friends, you see your other people in the minyan. You're proud of yourself. You know, I'm doing well. And you talk. And then you talk a little more. And then services start. And you're talking when you really shouldn't be talking. There are parts of the service when you're not supposed to talk at all. And next thing you know, you go from just talking to talking where it's inappropriate to talk to talking Lashon HaRa. All this from, hey, why don't you get up early and go to shul? What we have here in the opening verse of chapter 3 of Zechariah is Joshua, the high priest, and Satan is on his right to accuse him. And the reason he's on his right is because this person, Joshua, the high priest, what did he do that was so bad? He was too lenient or not strict enough when it came to reproving and reprimanding and disciplining his children. These children eventually abandoned Judaism and intermarried, and his lineage was lost. And I think there is a lesson here for us today. Many years later, Joshua the Kohen Gadol lived in the days of the building of the second temple, the second Beis Mikdash, and over 2,000 years later, we're here, and sometimes some of us may be accused of being a little lax when it comes to setting limits and a high moral standard for our children. And the HaRa doesn't say, oh, you know what, don't discipline your kids. Yeah, who needs that? Let them do what they want. It's much more crafty. It's much more subtle. It'll say, this high moral ground, these moral standards of yours, these orthodox religious ideas, you're not really exposing your kids to the modern world. They're not going to fit in. They're not going to blend in. And so a person might think that by being, quote unquote, tolerant and open-minded, again in quotes, they are exposing their children to the real world and better preparing them for life in what we call the real world. It sounds like a good thing, but in fact, it opens the door to a lot of problems that are at the time unforeseen, but if you thought about it for a minute, you should have seen it coming. So we too run the danger of being like Yehoshua HaKohen HaGadol, Joshua the high priest, who has Satan on his right side, thinking, you know what, go easy on your kids, you'll be a better parent, they won't be resentful of you, when in fact, had we been a little more firm, a little more strict when it comes to spiritual and religious and moral teachings, we could perhaps save our children a lot of pitfalls and downfalls in the future. The Satan, the HaRa, that evil inclination, doesn't always come at you head on. It doesn't come from where you expect it to come from. It's not always that little devil sitting on the left shoulder, the bad side. In English, the word sinister comes from the Latin, French, sinistre, left. We must exercise ceaseless vigilance, because sometimes temptation comes from somewhere you don't expect, and sometimes it comes disguised as something good. You think you're doing a good thing, but it's not so good. We're going to be doing more videos along these lines. Please come back, please watch, please learn. And until next time, on behalf of the Emunah Project, I'm Daniel, and thank you too much.